Let's just start with the breaking news on what's happening inside of the courthouse. The jury has asked a question. The question, we're told, is whether the jury may watch a video in private or do they need to go back into the courtroom to do that. There's a discussion happening right now between the lawyers and the judge about what the answer is. It sounds like it's a video as opposed to all videos, but I'm not clear on that. And apparently the defense has objected to one piece of it, saying if it's that drone video that the defense had such an objection to, that the prosecutor dropped late in the case, and that had the blurry blow up of Kyle allegedly pointing his gun at a witness not actually involved in any of these charges, then no, they can't watch it on their own. The defense counsel wants to be present for that. And I guess they also want to limit how many videos the jury is able to go review, and the judge is pushing back on the defense on that one, saying they're adults. You can't treat them like children. They can see whatever number of videos they want. So that's what's happening right now. Robert, let me start with you on what you make of the fact that now, it was 8 hours yesterday they deliberated. It's about 2 more today, so we're at 10 hours. And that question and their other question yesterday, which was to see additional copies of the jury instructions. What, if anything, can we glean?
So 2 things. Wisconsin has a somewhat unique rule. It does not allow the jurors to view a lot of exhibits back in the jury room. Most courts do. And Wisconsin generally doesn't allow it. That's why they're supposed to watch any of the exhibits in front of others so that there can be objections. Probably the reason why the jury would like to watch it in the deliberation room is you have an argument within the jury. You have people who want to stop it and say, see this. And that's, in fact, from the moment they asked for the jury instructions, my interpretation was there were holdouts. And the great danger in jury selection in this case was because of the pretrial publicity, it contaminated the Kenosha jury pool with many prejudiced jurors that if they did not do a meaningful, detailed, probing voir dire and jury selection, they were going to, both sides, but definitely the defense would get stuck with 3 to 4 jurors who wanted to convict no matter what the evidence showed. And I think that's exactly what we have.
What do you make of it, Richard? Because, I was talking in my opening talking points memo about how this whole thing has been so skewed by the politicians and the media from the start, going back to Jacob Blake, which is very much linked to this case. And then they repeated all the same mistakes on Kyle's case, all the same biases, all the same rushes to judgment. And that has put the jury pool and potentially the actual jurors now deliberating in a really tough position.
Yeah, I have to agree, too, with Robert. That sounds like holdout jurors trying to bring that footage to others. They're looking for a justification because I know it hurts people's idealistic views, but most jurors, Megyn, they don't render verdicts based on the facts and the arguments of the case. They have belief systems. The way the media did cover this, we have seen this in many national cases that Robert and I have both worked on, and it really does poison that jury pool. The predisposition towards Kyle in this case really was bad. And the pitfalls showed it in the research. And then also there is a fear.
Is that what you mean? When you say predisposition toward Kyle, do you mean against him? I mean,
that he was guilty.
Way?
That he was guilty. Yeah, that he was. But we asked people whether or not they thought he was probably guilty from what they had heard from news coverage, or probably innocent. And it was overwhelming, even among demographics that most people at a glance may think would be favorable to Kyle. But in truth, jury selection is much more complicated than that. People render verdicts based on belief systems and personalities. It's just the way it is. And from what the research we did, it doesn't surprise me at all if there are 2 to 4 holdouts that basically have this view that Kyle should not have been there with a firearm, and that's it. And once the judge dismissed that misdemeanor possession charge, that was looking at the research, I could see that as the compromise charge that other jurors could have went along with. And once that was off the table, they're gonna fight for some kind of accountability. It's just what we saw. And again, the media on this, the number of people, it's coupled with what they know because of what they've been told with the media. Also, that is coupled with fear over what happened with the protests in Kenosha. And I mean, more than 8 and 10, Kelly, Megyn, we're extremely worried about this happening again. And you can't have that holding over people's heads if you want an impartial verdict. It's
so
tough.
You did actual questioning
it's not a perfect system.
Of people who would be in the Kenosha jury pool to get a feel for what the challenges Rittenhouse might be up against were.
We did, and there were a lot of pitfalls. I mean, to say the least, this was a jury selection case, Megyn. This was a jury selection case.
And in other words, the case gets won or lost on the jury selection.
That's it. That's exactly right. And there are just certain people that we found, we talked to, we interviewed over and over, and it doesn't matter what you tell them. It doesn't matter what facts you present to them, what arguments you make to them. This kid is guilty no matter what. That's it.
And did you find a difference? And this jury has 7 women, 5 men. We don't know what the racial makeup is of the jurors. I guess there was one Hispanic person in the larger group, but we don't know whether that person has made it into the final 12. But mostly white. Kenosha's, I think, 80 or 90% white, so it's not particularly surprising. So did you see, I mean, was there a breakdown in terms of gender on who would be more prosecution or defense oriented?
You know, those basic demographics that matter so much with political polling are very marginal when it comes to jury selection. In a case like this, really what we found were people's beliefs on the right to self-defense mattered, personal experiences in their life. I was just trying to explain this before, and I thought back to the Scott Peterson trial where that one juror, Travis, was basically thrown off of the jury and replaced with Rochelle, who had a life experience that she was abused while pregnant by a man. And everything that ever happened to her in her life that was wrong, and that a man did to her, Scott was that man. And I'm not talking about the guilt or the innocence of Scott Peterson. I'm just saying how complicated these things can be when jurors are deliberating and people's personalities get into the mix. So life experiences and whether people have certain beliefs and the right to protect property, the right to protect their own person, that weighs more than basic demographics like gender. It's incredible. It's complicated, but it's probably one of the more fascinating aspects of what we do.
So what would you have said it was the perfect juror for Kyle Rittenhouse?
Yeah, honestly, this is where we had some differences with some of the other opinions we heard. A perfect juror would have been a man or woman who did have strong beliefs in the Second Amendment. A lot of people thought that somebody who was pro-Second Amendment might, or not even pro-Second Amendment, but really right to self-defense, may find that what he did was irresponsible. And the truth is, that's probably 75-25. So we're looking at probabilities when we pick a profile of a specific juror. And then also to, a white, you would look at Kyle and you would say maybe a white woman with certain beliefs in education, whether they're college educated, is probably good for him. But in fact, they were bad for him. So we would probably stick to more working class, man or woman really wouldn't matter, but more working class or at least some college, but not a postgraduate or maybe a woman who's 45 and older with just a bachelor's. So it really gets granular, but it's interesting. It's more socioeconomic.
So do you know any of those facts about the current jurors? Like, do you have any of the data? We know precious little about them.
Yeah, unfortunately, and this is probably something Robert should talk to you more about, but this was a mistake, I have to say, on the part of the defense. They had an opportunity, and I think they had a judge who would have been open to this, to vet these jurors better within a time frame that Robert and I typically do not get. When this happens, in any other given trial, we have to work very quickly. And in this case, there was an opportunity to do a lot more work, and it was blown. So unfortunately, we just don't know as much about the jury as I think a good, or competent defense would have found out by now.